Nice. So, when Lex and I first met, I was doing my postdoc research at Yale University, and we were doing a study on salvia divinorum, if anyone's heard of that. At the same time I was doing this research, I was also doing my clinical psychology postdoc in substance abuse. And so these are two very different worlds. So I've got two stories, not just one, but they're both linked in my mind because they both kind of occurred. I witnessed these stories at a similar time in my life. I guess for context, to take up that dare, I'll mention that I have fibromyalgia, which is a chronic health condition, which one of the symptoms is chronic pain throughout my entire body all the time. And so I'm always very interested to hear other people's stories about how they relate to pain and how they relate with their bodies. So at Yale, I was helping someone to take pure Salvinorin A, which is a very potent psychedelic compound, and it's very short-acting. And so this individual took a high dose of salvia, and then they just kind of had their experience for about 10 minutes, and then they came back and we started talking about it. And they told me that they inhaled salvia and they were transported to kind of a garden. It was like this sort of garden area with very bright colors, and they were just sort of existing in it. They didn't have a body, they were existing outside of any sort of physical boundary. And they were moving through this space in this beautiful natural area, and there were other non-bodied entities there as well. And they were all kind of moving and dancing around and being with each other. And it was this beautiful, peaceful, like bliss state for a very brief time. And then, as the salvia trip inevitably ends, they were forced back into their bodies, into the research setting, in the room. And as this person was recounting this story to me, they started crying. And I gave them a minute, and they were just kind of crying. And they said, it's hard being human.
Yeah.
And I really felt that, because for a brief moment, they weren't human. They were outside of being human. They were outside of having a body. And then to come back to that, and to come back to verbal language, and to come back to this sort of meat space that we have to interact with each other. And it's hard. It's hard to be a body and to be a human. And they just cried from that. And I was totally there with them. Not long after, I was talking with a patient of mine who had gotten in an accident of some sort, and they required knee surgery. And as part of the recovery from knee surgery, they were given fentanyl. And fentanyl is a highly addictive opioid, and they became addicted. They started abusing it, and it became a point where they were eventually using it at work, and they got caught, and they got fired, and then they had to talk to me, and it was a really bad scene for them. And I just really started thinking about this person, how they were in pain, and the medical establishment, the person that this person is going for help, gave them fentanyl, and for a good, wholesome reason, but it became too much, and they started using it too often, and they became addicted to it, and a lot of bad things happened. And so for my patient, the second person, they had a body. They were a person with a body, and this body was in pain. They wanted to take a drug to remove the pain. And the short-term benefit of taking fentanyl was met with a very long-term, several years process of really negative legal and social consequences for being caught taking fentanyl at work. You're not supposed to do that sort of thing. And so you have a body, and bodies are painful. Bodies are full of suffering. And sometimes we just want to take drugs to get away from that, but it's not, it leads to these negative side effects. But the first person that I was talking to, they left their body. They stopped being an embodied individual for a short amount of time, and it was just so different. It was so blissful, and then to be forced back into that was just worthy of tears, to be this again. And sometimes it really sucks to have a body, but we are bodies. And that's whether we like it or not. The pain that we experience comes from our bodies, but also the pleasure, the good things, the joy, the connection with other people. We connect through our bodies. We feel good emotions through our bodies. We feel bad emotions through our bodies. So to take fentanyl, it's really good at distancing you from your body, and that can be great for short term, but it's really not good for the long term. Taking salvia can very much distance you from your body for the short term, but you come back, and it's not really a long-term solution either. So escaping your body doesn't seem to be an answer. So instead, we live with it. As an unexpected follow-up, this woman in my salvia study, she was also a yoga practitioner. And maybe a year, maybe 2 years later, I go into a yoga class and I see this person again. And they come up to me and we start chatting. And they said, "Oh, you should come back. We're doing another study. We'd love to have you." And they said, "Well, I'd love to, but I'm about to move to Bali to be a yoga instructor." So they, for them, a way out of this painful suffering having of a body is through a physical practice like yoga. And the same for me. That's my primary spiritual practice. So drugs can help you to get in touch with your body. Drugs can help you to escape from your body. But the core of it is that we are bodies. We have bodies. And through a lot of my experiences with people who have bad relationships with drugs, or for people who are taking drugs in a research setting, I learn, and I have the pleasure of witnessing people exploring and learning about their relationships with their bodies, and it's very insightful, it's very meaningful to me. So I guess my storytelling is about people having bodies. I encourage you, I challenge all of you to notice that. I mean, so often we're just brains floating around that maybe have these sort of visceral appendages we don't really understand or think about much, but we actually are embodied beings, and that's a beautiful thing. It's also a really painful thing, but it's through our bodies that we understand ourselves and the world around us. And so my challenge to everyone is to notice and to really be in your bodies.